The latter half of the 19th century into the early part of the 20th century was a time of increasing crisis. In the last module, we covered the political element of those crises, namely the developments in individual nation states, and by the end of our last lecture, you could trace how the diplomatic situation in Europe was starting to get more and more grievous, and nations are being pushed closer and closer to war. But the changes, the tension, the crises didn't just stay confined to politics, and that's what we're going to try and trace through in this module. Going to look at a number of different developments and help you see what is going on in Western civilization and European society at this time. One author has described this period as a nervous splendor, in many ways underscoring the fact that despite Western civilization seemingly reaching its height, it's also a time period in which Western civilization is coming to doubt itself and run into severe problems. So how are we going to tackle this series of topics? Well, first we're going to look at the broadest level of change, which is demography. How are changes occurring in this latter half of the 19th century into the 20th? Second, we're going to look at the nature of the world economy in the 19th century. And then third, we're going to look at, in a little bit more detail, what are the technological developments? In many ways, Lecture 9.2 and 9.3 are related. What are the broad economic changes that are occurring? And then how can you see that play out through technology? In Lecture 9.4, what we're going to look at is how is culture at this time point just as suffused with crises and tensions and concerns as anything else, because many of the demographic, economic, and technological changes blend into why science, philosophy, and the arts at this time are filled with some tension. Lastly, we're going to look at seemingly Western civilization at its height from the standpoint of dominance of the globe. We're going to look at the effect of imperialism on Africa and Asia, the expansion of Europe overseas, which not only will showcase Europe at its height, but will, as we'll touch on in our next module, will ensure that when we get to a conflict between the European powers, it truly will become a world war.